Bulgarian German Chamber. Welcome and thanks for joining. My name is Christophe de Mil. I am CFO of PwC Bulgaria, meaning both for UBB and DZI, and I am the chairman, the co-chairman of the Bank and Insurance Commission of the German Chamber. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to the session of today, the session on the topic of cybercrime in finance. From a practical perspective, a couple of things. Would just like you to be aware, and I hope nobody objects, that we will record this session so that afterwards also people who were not able to make it could still have a look at it. That is point one. Point two, during the session, in order not to overload the streaming, I suggest that, except for the speakers, of course, we all mute ourselves and we disconnect the cameras. That is point two. And point three, we will have two speakers today, which I will introduce shortly. I suggest that we leave the questions from the audience till after the two sessions. And I welcome and invite everybody during the sessions to already indicate the questions you would like to raise in the chat bot. So no worries, put them in the chat bot and we will allocate them, we will tackle them after the two speakers have finished their session. There will be time to tackle the Q&As. If you would not have put your question in the chat, you can obviously raise your hand after the two sessions as well. Now, that is from a practical perspective. Let me introduce maybe the topic and the speakers. I do believe that the topic of cybercrime in the financial domain was important already before the pandemic, the COVID pandemic arose, but has even become more actual and more important. We as financial institutions, but also our clients, both private individuals and companies, are increasingly engaging in digital ways of business. Digital engagement with our customers, with their customers, digital ways also of then exchanging, let's say, sensitive information in those transactions, but also exchanging financial information and even doing financial transactions. So the way that business is being done is more and more digital, which by definition makes it more and more prone to the risk of cybercrime. In fact, if you would use a metaphor, we are currently, as our core business in banking, we are taking money from customers. We are taking in on board money from customers, which we have never physically seen before. And we are giving that money in the form of loans, credit cards, whatever you want to have. We are giving that money to other customers, which also we have never seen before. So you see, that way of changing our business model and the transactions underlying in that business model is giving more and more rise to risks. We are looking at risks in terms of know your customer. We haven't seen the customers in many cases. We are looking at risks of anti-money laundering because, well, we have new onboarded customers digitally for which we have little history or knowledge if there would be a risk with respect of doing transactions through our channels, which could be sensitive to money laundering. And last but not least, obviously by doing a lot of digital interactions, the risk of cybercrime, cyber criminals trying to invade what we believe are secure and safe interactions with our customers, well, that risk of cybercrime is, of course, increasing. What we also see more and more, and I think we are all aware, if not, I think it's a clear thing that also the cyber criminals are not the criminals anymore who are trying to hack transactions systems from their garage. That time is far gone. Cyber criminals today are well-organized companies, quite often having hundreds of staff, hundreds of illegal staff working for them in order to set up professional schemes of trying to invade our digital transactions with customers, but also the digital transactions of our customers with their off-takers, in which we are involved, for example, through the payment streams. So the organization of cyber criminals is becoming, so to speak, a professional business and is professionalizing itself strongly, which means that we also need to be ready for that. And the question is indeed how to tackle that, how to cope with that. And that's the topic of today in terms of cybercrime. And we all know we are walking on a difficult balance here. It is a difficult balance between, on the one hand, making sure that the core of our business stays untouched. And the core of our business is trust. Our customers need to be able to trust the transactions that they are providing through us, that these transactions and the data related to those transactions are safe and secure, and we are the ones safeguarding those transactions and those data. So we are having a very important role to protect the core of our business in terms of trust. But on the other hand, we also need to make sure that we facilitate this new business model of digital business. If we would go to try to restrict the risk to zero, we probably would create a completely inconvenient process for our customers, and therefore we would not do business anymore. So it is a difficult balance between trust and security on the one hand, and convenience to facilitate the current business models of our customers in today's digital environment. And it's not only about us. We can be aware of this, we can try to do whatever we want, but our customer is also in the middle of this whole transaction, in the middle of this whole scheme, which means we also need to take a role in how to educate our customers to help creating that security and safety that we need in the new business models. So I do believe a very actual topic, a topic which will become more and more actual going forward. And therefore, I'm very happy that we have two speakers today who will touch upon these risks and how to deal with them. First of all, we have Alexander Klasanov of Raiffeisenbank. Welcome, Alexander. Alexander has more than 20 years of experience in the IT industry. And for the last 10 years, he has basically been practicing as a professional in the information security area. And currently, he is Chief Security Officer at Raiffeisen Bulgaria. So I do believe the right person to tackle the topic that we want to discuss today. Secondly, we will have Ilian Velikov from PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, who will speak to us on the same topic. You will see that they will be touching different angles of the problem and different angles of possible solutions. Ilian has a 9-year experience in providing penetration testing services, and mainly in providing those penetration testing services towards financial industry customers. Again, I do believe a very relevant background and experience to enlighten us in the topic of today. So I will leave it here as an introduction of the agenda of the two speakers. Once more, I would like to thank Alexander and Ilian to be present here today. And without further ado, I give the floor to Alexander. Alexander, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope that you can hear me well.
Loud and clear, Alexander.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I will share my presentation, which I have been prepared for you. Okay. Can you hear it? Can you see the presentation, please? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay. thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts about security on this forum. The idea for today is to discuss with you these 4 topics pointing to my presentation. So I will start with the top 5 critical trends. What I mean here, you know that security and technologies are a very important part of our business in general, but the reality is that the leading part is provided by the business. So business dictates what kind of technologies we should be implemented to deal with the different business goals. So from that perspective, I would like to share my thoughts. Of course, they're based on different kind of sources. These are the 5 critical trends which could impact and currently impacting the security in general, not only on banking services, but in general. So I will start with the first one. You know that everyone now is trying to do different kind of digital transformations. You know, not only banking, but the different business are trying to convert to the digital services, because now there's a really clear model how to do this, and this is the new way of providing of services. But from the security perspective, this is not so clear and bright as a future. Here I give you one example of from the Ford Motor Company, which failed to do this kind of digital transformation. What is the main problem? The main problem is that banks and the different companies trying to convert to the digital, they expect that all business processes and connected with and related to them applications will be transparently converted to the digital. But in the reality, it is not very sure that this is so transparent process. And from the security perspective, we are facing very interesting problems. The most important maybe is the risk according to the connection of two. So my example is, if we have a two well-secured systems, but if we try to connect them in a clear way, here could appear so-called integration risks. What I mean that the connection between these two systems could lead to the high risk from the security perspective. And when the companies are trying to do this digital transformation in a fast way, sometimes they skip the security requirements. So this is the first trend which I would like to point. The second one is according to are pointing to the cloud services. So here I put one very popular joke which describes in general what are the security are cloud services. What I mean, most of the companies are accept that the cloud services are very clear and their services are provided in a very clear way. But in reality, we're facing different kind of problems. So what I mean that some of the service providers trying to get more functionality, they are losing the focus on security. And we have a lot of examples according to the different kind of data breaches. At the beginning of this year, we have already this kind of accident, which that could lead to data leakage according to different kind of insurance policies data. Maybe some of you should remember about that. So what is the problem here? Of course, cloud services are a very popular model, and we cannot skip it, but we need to really focus on that. I mean that we, as a banking services or users of their services, should to focus on that how to control the security implemented measures pointing to the cloud services. This is the very important topic. So the third one is about the new regulations. What is the reality from the security perspective? Different kind of new regulations require different kind of security approaches, which leads to separation of data to the different sources. And here we are facing a lot of issues according to support the different kind of databases spread it to the different platforms. Maybe some of them are on testing stage and so on. So from the security perspective, we are losing focus of the real security and trying to cover these rising requirements from the regulation perspective. Sorry. So this is a really important topic. The next one is about the hacking services. Hacking services are real business now. You know about this case happened in United States. It's very important, by the way, because here I have provided a link to the dark side ransomware providers, and they're really creating a real business model. What I mean that you as a user of their services could get some percentage of the hacked databases or services which are already planned to be done in the future. So what I mean here, I mean that hacking services are using a lot of cloud services and also are providing a different kind of benefits to their users. So the expectation in the past were some hackers are just one and sitting on the dark room and creating a code to compromise someone or something. Currently is a little bit different. Now we are facing very skillful professionals which are really motivated to do their job. I will continue with the last one. The last one is really important thing from the practical perspective. We're facing this kind of issues not only on the banking services, but also in a different kind of companies where you can see a lot of issues according to implementing of real security inside the business processes. I know that a lot of the companies are saying, okay, our security is good enough, but in reality, security in most cases are at the end of the processes. They are not unseparated part of the processes. Of course, it is just a matter of mindset, and there is some tendencies this to be changed soon. But currently, we are facing a lot of similar problems, and we are trying to convert security not to be at the end of the process, but inside them. This is a very important part, by the way. I would like you to keep attention on that, maybe in your companies. So, of course, there are additionally a lot of different additional trends which could impact the security. But from my perspective, this is the top 5. And this is a current model, of course. I expect that in near future to have different factors which could be taken in mind. So the first one, which I expect to become a game changer, is quantum computers. Why I'm saying this? Because current security technologies are based on the cryptography, and the strength of cryptographic algorithms are based on how long it will take to they to be broken. I expect that quantum computers will shorten this time very soon, and we, from the security perspective, will be forced to implement different kinds of security technologies, and this kind of technologies should be replace the current one, and this maybe will be necessary to happen in a very short time. So how to address all these topics and tendencies coming from the business, coming from the current threats, and so on. Of course, the answer is to create and implement a tailored security strategy, because the strategy is approach which give us the our perspective of the implementation of security for maybe the next 3, 4, 5 years. It depends. So without a strategy, our approach from the security perspective, I mean, will be ad hoc approach. It will be not so efficient. So the first and most important part, organizing the security inside the banks or different kind of company, is to create a very tailored security strategy, taking in mind this kind of trends or different kind of trends in pointing to security, current threats, and the future threats or predictions according to development of the business. This is the really important part. Okay, now I'm going to switch to the second topic. When we are creating different kind of strategy, we could take in mind threats, as I said before. Here, the most important information are the first 3 topics, which summary create about 80% of the threats. And as you can see, they are in general focusing on social engineering and connected to this phishing or different kind of additional services. So in the future, I expect that we will have this kind of threats on the top places, and from the security perspective, we need to have efficient way to deal with them. Now I will share some mitigation tactics. Of course, pointing to the threats to the phishing, of course, the most important part is the trainings. What I mean, there have been made different kind of researches about the effectiveness of implementation of different kind of security measures. And training is the most important and the most effective way to deal with that. Of course, it takes a lot of time, but the proven efficiency is really high. So currently in our bank, we are using different kind of additional services pointing to the awareness and the trainings. We are using KnowBe4 as a platform, but of course there are different kind of vendors and services which should be useful for you. Yeah. On the next place are the different kind of tactics which could be used to check the effectiveness of applied controls, like a penetration testing. You can see it here, like business continuity planning, effective business continuity planning, and testing also. So I will not go one by one, but you can see that the security is the organization of complex measures which could be applied on the same time to get the biggest level of efficiency. Okay, and finally, I will describe one case study pointing to the compromising online banking. My example is not connected to the provided from the Raiffeisen Bank services, but this is the real case, and I would like to discuss with you what really happened here. So, in general, how to compromise online banking. This is not a guide. This is just a example of this. So in general, attacking vectors are pointing to the compromising client authentication, and of course, on the next level, to compromise transaction authentication. The most popular approach you can see here is the phishing, or install some malware on the devices, or compromise the local network devices. I have a case from my experience previously when I was working as a consultant. Hackers were take over one network devices which was used by the small company, and they were affecting to or redirect to the online banking, compromising the local network device to the phishing site, and taking advantage of this to compromise the online banking of this company. It was very, very interesting case. Of course, one of the popular approaches to compromise and use SIM swap. SIM swap is a technique where attacker have a cloned copy of the SIM card used from the client to confirm the transactions. Here's the explanation about how SIM swap fraud is working. As I explained, this is the create a cloning of the SIM card and to use it for malicious goals. And finally, here's one example. As I said, it is not connected with Raiffeisen, but here's the chronology of this scenario, and how the client online banking was compromised. So we have one compromised username and password for the online banking user, and also we have a SIM card controlled by an attacker. Maybe some of you will ask yourself, how is this possible? As I said previously, we're facing people which are really good professional and very knowledgeable about what they are doing. So here is the case. Here's the chronology. It was explained in 7 points, and here you can see that the people from the banking side are trying to prevent or protect the client, but in this example it doesn't happen, because the all alarms and validations provided from the banking side was not really effective. So this okay, my time is up. So I would propose to stop here. Maybe one final word, sorry, is about the lessons learned. Uh, I will just summarize what I mean. Security is a shared responsibility. I mean that from the banking side, if we are trying to protect the client in the best way, if the client is not responsible enough, it will be not so effective. And the second, maybe most important message to the audience is that security mission is to build the trust, and trust is a part of the trust which needs to be built by the banks, but not only by the whole company. So in general, I would like to say, be careful and be responsible to your money, and of course, we will try to do our best to protect you and your money also. So this is from my side.
Thank you very much, Alexander. Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation, giving a view on the key risks that you guys identify as professionals in the domain, the trends that you see going forward. For example, indeed, what would happen when quantum computing is more and more embedded. Also giving us a couple of views on potential protection actions to take. I was still interested to see that the human factor, making sure that people are aware, is as important as the systems itself. I saw you putting quite some stress on the human factor as well in the protection process, and indeed the online banking case as a demonstration of what could go wrong. Thank you, Alexander. As indicated, we will not open the floor for questions now. Please keep them with you, dear audience, or feel free, I repeat it, to put them already into the chat. Questions that you would specifically have towards Alexander, but that might also be more generic questions. I'm sure Alexander and Ilian will be able to tackle them later. So now, with pleasure, I give the floor to Ilian Velikov from PwC, who will further build upon the topic from his perspective. So, Ilian, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Quick check. I guess you can hear me.
Yes, we can, Ilian.
Yes,
Loud
we
and
can.
clear.
Thank you. I'll share my slides. Hello, everyone. I'm happy that I'm here and I have the opportunity to talk to you about cyber threats mitigation and to present a short phishing case study. Before I begin, I would like to build up a little bit about myself from what you are already told. I started my professional career in the United Kingdom, part of the PwC UK over there, providing cybersecurity services, focusing on pen testing to financial service organizations. My next career move was to join a big global financial service institution as part of their cybersecurity team. And last year, I had the opportunity to relocate back to Bulgaria, and I was lucky enough to join PwC Bulgaria. Over here, I'm a manager providing pen testing services in the Balkan region, Bulgaria and countries around Bulgaria. What we mean by cyber and cyber threats. This slide, I know is overcrowded, but I tried to put pretty much what I can think of in terms of cyber threats. As we can all see, there are quite a lot of different point of views when we talk about cyber threats. Some people think about risk, some people think about investment, some people think about compliance. We also have the risk management factor, people and culture, incident response, cloud, identity and access management, and so forth and so forth. So in a nutshell, cyber threats management is complex. The impact, or at least the financial part of the impact, is not that difficult to narrow down, luckily. The numbers on this slide shows that in last year, it took around 207 days for an organization, on average, 207 days for an organization to identify that there was a breach. And it took 281 days on average for an organization to identify the breach and to contain that breach. These numbers are provided from a Ponemon study, 2019. And what took me by surprise over there actually was that not organizations in the financial service industry are paying the most when they experience a breach. Actually, organizations in the energy sector are paying $50 on average more per day when they experience a breach. The numbers over here are actually per day. So in the energy sector, for an organization, when they experience a breach, it costs them $25,157 per day. Multiply that by the average days, we can see the numbers are pretty high. Another thing that actually took me by surprise was the fact that third on that list was organizations in the healthcare, which are paying more than $21,000 per day when they experience a breach. So the financial side of cybersecurity breach is significant. As you can see, we also have the reputational side and so forth and so forth. Therefore, it comes to no surprise probably that cybersecurity nowadays, it's taken more seriously than what it used to be when I started my professional career. Currently, 50% of the senior management are saying that they're trying to make cybersecurity in every business decision and plan that they're making. Trying to shift cybersecurity left as much as possible and ensure that this is well thought of and implemented appropriately. And 44% of the senior management are saying that actually they have a new process of budgeting for cyber. These numbers come from PwC 2021 Global Digital Trust Insight Survey and sort of resonate with what we heard in the previous slide. How do organizations improve cybersecurity? We saw there are quite a lot of tools, techniques that organizations can deploy to improve their cybersecurity posture. At a high level, we can narrow these down into the following: compliance, the proactive function, red team, which I'll talk about in a minute, organizations, detective and reactive function, the blue team, which I'll talk about in a minute, and the fix function, which is a purple team. When we talk about compliance, we know there are quite a lot of mandatory and optional regulations, just to name a few: PCI DSS, GDPR, and so forth and so forth. And yes, I think they're actually probably coming a burden to organizations. Optional ones, they're too many as well to list them all here. However, there is one worth mentioning. This is TIBER, and it was initially published by European Central Bank, May 2018. This is an optional regulatory requirement, is a framework that shows how to deliver a controlled, bespoke, intelligence-led red team test of critical life production systems. This was developed by Bank of England, taking the lessons learned from this was developed by European Central Bank by taking the lessons from Bank of England, where they have similar simulation called CBEST and what is now called TIBER Netherlands. In the UK, they actually have a mandatory one, which is called the CSTAR, and financial service institutions have to perform an annual assessment. The key objectives of this TIBER optional regulation is to actually try to help organizations, because once a new service emerges, there is a chance that a lot of organizations will develop various frameworks which are going to be different. Hence, the banks are trying to come up first with a unified framework of how simulated threat team assessments are to be performed. And if there are multiple frameworks, these, as we all know, are going to be a potential burden to organizations that have to comply with this, either financially or otherwise. And multiple frameworks also can give the rise of unnecessary exposure of sensitive information and might additionally lead to inconsistent results. So what is a threat team? I mentioned threat team simulations. Well, a red team, in a nutshell, is a proactive function in the organization, which is tasked with proactively assessing the cybersecurity posture of the organization by performing activities in a controlled environment. Typical day-to-day activities of a red team include red team simulation, phishing simulations, and penetration test services. These can be internal or external to the organization, team members. And sometimes the red team actually are tasked with something called hypothetical threat hunting. What is a hypothetical threat hunting? This is an activity where the red team is actually sharing their knowledge of how adversaries, aka bad guys, could have compromised the organization and what they could have done. Why do you share that knowledge with the blue team? What does the blue team do? The blue team is the detective and reactive function within the organization. Again, this can be internal or external and is tasked with monitoring, detecting, and responding to cybersecurity incidents. Typical blue team key activities include cybersecurity monitoring and detection by responding to alerts, respond to potential incidents following a set triage workflow, and incident response to an extent. Once an incident is, I need to switch my speaker, apologies. Oh, hello, can you hear me? Apologies, I don't know what's happening.
Yes, we can hear you. No problem.
Is there a low background noise?
No, it's fine.
Okay, sorry, I'll continue. So, security incident response to extent. Once an incident is actually confirmed, a special team, incident response management team, comes in and helps the organization to tackle the incident. They follow a strict workbooks, and this is to ensure that evidence are properly handled and activities from the adversaries are properly managed. The blue team can perform also threat hunting activities. And threat hunting is referred to as an incident response without an incident. This is a definition by the UK cybersecurity program. And in that definition, they say that it's an emergent activity that compromises of proactive, iterative, human-centric identification of cyber threats that are internal to the information technology network and have evaded, that's the key word, evaded cybersecurity controls, which means that they are searching for threats that they don't know of, they're not on their radar on the security management tools. And I briefly mentioned about purple teaming. In other words, this is the fixed function where both teams, red team and the blue team, are actually working together in a joint simulation. As you can imagine, this is a complex simulation, and the objectives goes both ways, for the objectives for the red team and the objectives for the blue team. In a nutshell, the red team is trying to improve their tools, processes to achieve the certain goals. The same goals for the blue team, where they're trying to fine-tune their SOC controls, such as SOC tooling, such as SIM, and the processes of actually catching incidents that previously could have bypassed their tools and processes. This is done by following something called kill chain, and this is shown on the left. It's currently maintained by Mitre, As we can see, there's quite a lot on this slide. I just want to briefly show you the workflow of what adversaries do, which is on the left side, the red team, or that simulates what adversaries do. And this is directly mapped to what the detective and reactive team, the blue team, does for each of these activities. And that resonates to what we heard previously. Phishing actually is probably the most important part of the attack. As we can see on the top left side, this particular scenario starts with a spear phishing in order for the next objectives to be performed. Phishing is a social engineering that tries to manipulate victims to give up confidential information. We have the typical phishing scenarios, spear phish and mass phish, which are sent by emails. However, phishing can be done via phone as well. This is called phishing, and phishing can be done via text messages, and this is called smishing. All of these have the same objective: to gain sensitive information, password, bank details, etc., or to trick the target to perform a particular action, for example, download and install malware. How do attackers, adversaries, perform this? Well, they deploy the thinking of, if you know your enemy, Sun Tzu said. So they go and have a look at the internet, what information is there. They use open source tools. This is referred to as open source intelligence, to get as much information as possible to their targets, such as usernames, email addresses, what the target actually do. They scrape that information from public websites such as LinkedIn, Facebook, etc., etc. Once they build a profile of the target, they sit down and deploy the thinking of all warfare is based on deception. So they think of how they can trick the target, and once they've developed their plan, they are actually deploying their phishing campaign. Once the phishing campaign completes, they deploy the thinking of, now the general who wins a battle makes many calculations. So what they can do from here? Well, they can potentially have tricked the user to install the Trojan, which is a malware that exfiltrates sensitive data from the organization. The next step could potentially be to actually encrypt the data within the organization. We've all heard about ransomware a lot. Or they can try to be stealthy and just sit back and listen to what is happening. I take keystrokes, or listen to the target microphone, or look at the target's webcam, and so forth. Or they can use the compromised account to log into the online banking of the organization, or if they manage to actually compromise personal identifiable information, they could use that to open an account. And well, the actual target will never know that they have a credit card and paid with, let's say, $10,000 outstanding debt, but that's what adversary will do. Or they could potentially try to send money to their accounts. I think we all heard about the famous Bangladeshi bank case a couple of years ago, where adversaries stole a significant amount of money, and they were caught by pure luck because they did a typo. That's what the phishing campaign is, and that's what the bad guys, adversaries, do. But what we, as a security professionals, can do? Well, we can just sit back and deploy what the bad guys are doing, the adversaries, who can repeat the whole step. Now, this is called phishing simulation, and although we follow the same methodology adversaries do, the objective here is different. The key objective for the security professionals is to actually educate the organizational employees of what they shall do once they're part of a phishing campaign. In a nutshell, they don't have to click on the email, they need to follow the company policy, which says X, Y, and Z. And I was lucky enough to find this very interesting news article about a recent phishing simulation. I've seen this, or similar to this, in real life, where phishing simulations don't normally go the way as planned. In this article from The Guardian, the trade union of West Midlands trains is actually complaining that the phishing simulation was very realistic and a lot of people click on it. We will not know the details of how the campaign was deployed. We will potentially figure out that this campaign perpetrated to be sent from the managing director, Julian Edwards, with a statement of saying that people will get the one-time payment as a thank you note for all the hard work they did last year. And that's the manipulation. That's how attackers are thinking. They're trying to manipulate their targets, and that's pretty convincing. If people are saying they're going to get their bonuses, obviously there is an enticement for them to click on the link. And that's the official statement of the West Midlands cybersecurity team, saying that they've replicated what the bad guys will do. However, in this case, due to the fact that this email was sent to a lot of people and the trade union actually raised that to the newspaper, they are demanding now that West Midlands trains actually pay bonuses to their employees. It will be interesting to see how this develops, and I'll try to keep track on it, but it's a very interesting phishing case study that I thought I should present to you, just to showcase that sometimes phishing simulations, although performed by cybersecurity professionals with all good intentions at heart, they don't go as planned. And I would like to finish my presentation and open for question and answer session.
Thank you very much, Ilian, for this presentation. Again, broadening a bit your view on the risks, how to deal with those risks in the different team setups, and indeed bringing the element of the three types of, let me call it, phishing, going to smishing, to be very honest, which I hadn't heard of as a terminology, was new to me as well. But then of course bringing that example of let's say the phishing check towards the staff. Thanks a lot, Ilian, once again for your presentation. So I would, by doing this, open the floor for questions. So far, I have not seen questions in the chat unless I have overlooked them. But I'm sure Sonia would tell me if that would be the case. Given the fact there are at this moment no questions in the chat, I open the floor for questions from the audience. So please, when you have a question, I would say unmute yourself. You can, if you want to, start your camera and raise the question either to Ilian or to Alexander, or you can do that in general. Please feel free to do so. In order to give you maybe a bit more time to think about a question or a topic that you would like to raise, let me maybe start, and I'll raise the question to both of our speakers. We have seen the importance of system controls. We have seen the importance of employee awareness within organization and how you can increase that employee awareness, employee training, and so forth. I was wondering, maybe more towards Alexander from a very practical perspective in Raiffeisen, and towards Ilian from his more outsider view perspective, because it was Alexander mentioning it that we are in this game together with the customer. Yeah. I was wondering, do you have clear observations of best practices of financial institutions, companies who are able to get the customer indeed on board? Because as long as the customer is not upgrading his security protection, we might do a lot of stuff, but the vulnerability might still be there. I've seen in your presentations best practices and suggestions towards staff, but can you give a practical example or a best practice from your observation, how indeed to get us as financial institutions, the customer on board?
Okay, maybe I will share some experience about that. Yeah, to be honest, we are facing a lot of issues with the missing awareness of the clients. What I mean that a lot of people think that all and full responsibility should be taken by the banks and from the service providers. Of course, as I said, this is the shared responsibility, and we are trying to all the time to point the attention of the clients to the security. What I mean that inside our products or on our website and during the different kind of media, we are regularly inform the clients about the potential threats and how they need to deal with them. Of course, this is not this is not really effective because we just can share information with them, but we cannot we do not have a practical way to test are they really implementing the best security practices inside their activities. So this is maybe this is the biggest problem. As I said before, from the security perspective, if we implement some controls and if we are not able to test the efficiency of the implemented controls, we do not have enough information, are they really effective or not? And from the client perspective, we are facing exactly the same issue. So we are trying to do our best, but we cannot test in a practical way if this was implemented in effective way. So we are trying to deal with this issue with the different service providers. For example, from local email providers, I mean MailBG or ABVBG. Here, their local mail providers, popular in Bulgaria, and we are trying to do both with them to deal with the problems with the phishing campaigns and so on. So this is our approach. Yeah, it is not really effective, but we are searching to raise the effectiveness of this kind of awareness.
Okay.
This is from the banking side.
Jan, any views from your perspective, best practices, how to make sure customers are engaged and in that way helping the whole community and the ecosystem to indeed increase cybercrime protection?
I can echo what was said by Alexander. Coming from the UK, there is a very good campaign over there from one of the financial service institutions that tries to educate their clients via different media streams. Sometimes actually, I think they have something on the actual TV as well. I know because I used to be one of their customers, and that what coming from a pure cybersecurity standpoint of view, that took me very, very nicely by surprise that they are going and trying to educate their customers via different channels. I guess this is the right way forward. I can't actually practically see how these controls can be tested as of now, but at least banks can try to educate their customers.
Okay, thank you, Ilya. I'm once more addressing the audience. Are there any questions from the audience towards Alexander and Ilyan? Well, that does not seem to be the case. That means that you have either been extremely clear, Alexander and Ilyan, or you have put food for thought on the table, which needs to be reflected upon, which is also good, obviously. So by this, I would like to thank the audience for joining. I hope this was indeed useful in either providing insights, providing first hints of possible solutions, or at least food for thought within your own organization. If that was achieved, I think that was exactly the aim of the two presentations in the session today. So thank you very much for joining. And obviously, I would like to thank Ilyan and Alexander for their presentations, for their preparation. Well appreciated. And I'm looking forward to more sessions within the Bank and Insurance Commission of the German Chamber going forward. So once more, thanks to our speakers, thanks to the audience, and I wish all of you a very good rest of the day and the rest of the week, and hope to see you at the next occasion. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.